Welcome, auction planners. This is Sherry Truhlar with Red Apple Auctions. Thank you for joining me today, where we're going to be covering a question that I get a lot, and I'm willing to bet that you ask your own auctioneer this question too. Where are you going to start the opening bids? What are you going to start these live auction items at? Oh man, I get that question probably a dozen times a year. And I'm now going to be able to refer them to a blog post where my clients can read that or watch this, as the case might be, to learn why they shouldn't be concerned about opening bids. Now, as I was pulling this together, I had so much fun pulling this together. I know you're going to, well, I don't know if you're going to enjoy it, but I'm going to enjoy presenting it to you. There's three reasons as to why we don't need to be worried about opening bids. Put it out of your mind. Number one, selective memory. Selective memory. At the gala auction, your bidders, your donors, they don't remember what something opened at. They remember what it sold for. This is what they say. They say things like, I can't believe that vacation sold for $5,000. They say things like, oh, wow, that dinner sold for $2,000. Do you know that last year we had it in our silent auction and it sold for $500, and this year it sold for $2,000? That's what they say. They don't say, I can't believe that she started that dinner at $500. It just doesn't come up. The only time it would come up is if, in fact, your sale price was also your opening price, and that happens like rarely. Rarely does that happen. Now, I can appreciate that as an event planner, you want to facilitate the event as much as possible. You have put a lot of time and energy into this. You want to know what's going to happen, and part of that is understanding what the opening bids are going to be. I was an event planner once. I get that. But the same event planner that would say, Sherry, where are you going to start the bids on these things, is the same event planner who would never dream of going into the kitchen and telling the chef, you need to be cutting those carrots a little bit thicker. They'd look better on the plate if they were thicker cuts. This event planner would never go on stage to the band and tell the pianist, this song would sound a lot better if you did a little more staccato. Are you thinking of doing a little more staccato maybe on the next song? No, you leave that to the professionals. So if you're working with a professional auctioneer, someone you know and you trust, you don't need to be worried about opening bids. Now, granted, the auctioneer might ask you, is this item consigned? Do you have any bidding history with this? Do we have any previous sales? If it's a good auctioneer, he or she is going to be perhaps asking you some questions along those lines, but you don't need to be asking them, what are the opening bids going to be? Because in the long run, nobody remembers, nobody cares. They care about what the item sold for. Selective memory, number one reason. Number two, science. Actual science. So back in 2006, there were three researchers who got together, Adam Galinsky and Keith Murnaghan of Northwestern University and Gillian Koo of London Business School. They published a research paper. The research paper was called Starting Low but Ending High, a reversal of the anchoring effect in auctions. It was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. You can look that up if you'd like. So they studied thousands of auctions, and what they found is that the lower the opening bid, the higher the sale price. And they attributed this to three different processes. The first process was lower starting bids reduced the barrier of entry. You can appreciate this, right? If you start something out at $5,000, you're going to be able to have fewer people participate than if you started out at $50. Lower barrier to entry at $50 than $5,000. More people can play. So suddenly, people who ordinarily wouldn't be interested or able to bid on the item became invested because it was at a lower starting price, and this increased the amount of bids and escalated the sale price. The second process that contributed to this inverse effect was that the lower starting prices tempted bidders to invest more time and energy into the sale process, which in their mind became sunk costs. So this is like if you're out negotiating for something big, something you care about, a car, a house, and you have put a lot of time and effort into this. in a matter of speaking. Well, if you're at the car dealership for 90 minutes, kind of going back and forth and talking price and so forth, it gets to the point where you're like, dang it, I want to see this through. I don't want to start this whole process again. I just want the car. The same philosophy here is kind of going on in the minds of your bidders. The bidder is becoming invested in the bidding process. They've been bidding on it for a minute or so. In their minds, they own it. Now these other people are jumping in. Who are these other people? This is my item. Back off is what they're thinking. So they're more likely to stick around, they're more likely to bid and watch what that item sells for, which in turn escalates the bids. The third process that contributed to this start low, sell high effect is that the frenzy of the bidding that was generated from these lower starting bids got other bidders to believe that there was great value in the item. So in other words, the more bidding activity there was, the more bidding activity it beget. So I think there's an old phrase about work. The more you work, the more work you get. Whereas if you're just sitting at home and don't get work, you'll not get work. And that's kind of the same thing. All this frenzy's happening. All these people are bidding. Bidders start to think, whoa, what am I missing? I need to read up on this. I need to get involved in the action. Consequently, escalated the bids. So knowing all this, knowing that lower starting bids equals higher sale prices, doesn't it kind of make you want to ask your auctioneer to start every item at $1? Right? And you'll make more money. So this leads me nicely into the third reason, the third point that I wanted to make with regards to this, don't worry about opening bids, and that is the skill. A professional auctioneer has the ability to read the crowd, and they have that fast talk known as the chant. Both of those help raise you money. Auctioneers learn to read bidders. We learn to know when to push. We know when to speed up our chant or slow down our chant. We might get a sense of what bidding history is going on, like who are the best bidders in the room and generally where they start to drop off or get involved. A non-professional auctioneer, like a mayor, maybe the weatherman, maybe a board member, a non-professional auctioneer is more like an order taker. They say $200. Thank you. $250. Thank you. $300. $350. $350. $350. Thank you. $400. They're going around and taking orders from people. An auctioneer might take orders at first when the bidding starts, but then at some point they're going to take this and run with it because of the skill that they have. So if you were going to start every item at $1, can you imagine how long that would take for the non-professional auctioneer to take orders from $1 on up? But an auctioneer, we see 20 hands in the air. We can rapidly escalate that because we know we've got a lot of action going on. So you'd be out of there 2 hours before the non-professional auctioneer in that sense, because of our ability to read the crowd, our ability to know when to accelerate or stop, know when to push, know when not to push, and so forth. So that helps to raise you money. Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, we've got the 3 points. First, selective memory. Donors and guests don't remember what items started at, they remember what they sold for. Number 2, the science from the research. Lower starting bids equals higher sale prices. And finally, the skill of your professional auctioneer, their ability to read the crowd, their ability to do the chant. A lower opening bid is going to capture that bidder's attention. It's the skill of your professional auctioneer who's going to keep them engaged to get to that final higher selling price. Okay, for those of you that find this fascinating and maybe you're doing a live auction and you're like, gosh, there's got to be more that we can do to improve our live auction. Indeed, there is. If you look at this right up here in the corner, this is my program called Lucrative Live Auctions. It's a DVD, it's a workbook, and there's even a private web page on my website that you can go to get extra resources. It's like at least a 2-hour program teaching you everything there is to know about having a lucrative live auction. You can order that if that speaks to you. Feel free to do so. It'll be in your hot little hands in just a matter of days from my fulfillment center in Indiana, and I'd love to hear from you after the event to find out how your live auction did. Okay, I'm Sherry Truhlar with Red Apple Auctions. Thank you for joining me. As always, good luck to you in your benefit auction.